Good evening. This is Dr. Hungerford, and it's Monday evening at approximately 10:30. I was hoping that I'd be able to have a few of you join me tonight, but that's okay. We'll still go through the material and we'll go ahead and post this. But we're going to go over module tool two, and we're going to talk about just some of the key things that we are, going to be looking at module two. So as you know, through the syllabus, we're going to be going through chapters two and three. The assignment itself is actually going to be in two parts. So there's going to be a couple of questions that you're going to be asked to go over. And unlike the biography that we had asked you guys to do last week, we're going to have you submit a cover page. This one is actually going to be a two-page written response, and this is going to be due by next Sunday, October 27th. We got your four discussion questions. And so, as usual, we're going to want by close of business on Thursday or midnight on Thursday to have you guys do the first post to the four questions and then respond in the second post to one of your classmates. And so, as far as the reading, chapter two, this is where Norhaus goes through the trade approach. And we're going to look at some of the key aspects of this. But before we do that, one of the things I want to do is I want to go ahead and share my screen and uh, show you something that I had developed a few years ago that you may find of interest to you. And what this is this is a lexicon of leadership theories that I had actually put together in my doctoral work. Okay. So what this does is this goes into a lot more detail than what Norhaus does with a lot of the theories that he presents in his ninth edition book here. Um, so what we do is we're going to look at like the different categories of leadership. I know that's a little bit of an eye chart here, and you guys will have a copy of this, but there's different categories of different leadership theorists. Um, we went with Norhaus on how he breaks out things, and this is going to follow the flow that's in the book. But you actually have other leadership theories as well. Actually, what he did, so he looked at one of his more recent works and how he's changed from that about 8 years previous to that. Uh, Going through Dallas Baptist University, which is where I did my doctoral program, they had some different ways of looking at things. And there's a place called leadership.com that talks about divisions and subsets of leadership theories. There's another group of folks, Ledlow and Pella, that categorize leadership under different types of theories and methods. And then probably the most comprehensive is a group of authors, Goethal, Sorensen, and Burns, that have done some of the greatest work on leadership. And so these are just going to be some of the different leadership theories and how they look at that. One of the things I've done is the summary of the leadership theories. So what we're really looking at is the first leadership theory that really Norhaus doesn't even pay attention to, except for a passing glance in chapter one, is the great man theory. And that really is the beginning of leadership theory from an academic perspective. So as you can see, he goes all the way back to 401 BC, Hegel, but Carlyle was the main guy that really sort of brought things up. And I think I mentioned that last week. And you still have people that are writing to this. You'll see some interesting names on here as well, too. Soren Kierkegaard, Leo Tolstoy, Nietzsche, uh, Coase and Posner, Bass. Bass is probably the single person that has done the most to categorize, classify, and sort of compile all the different leadership theories in their entirety. So this week we'll be going through the trait theory. So we talk about all the key people that are, part of the leadership theory, the trait theory that have contributed to that. And then also the skills model, which is going to be chapter three, not as much on there. But then all the other things you're going to be learning and a whole lot more. That's in here. We sort of simplified the leadership theories as well. Um, One of the things that Nordhaus actually did notice in chapter one is all the different definitions of leadership. So they've taken the liberty to sort of over the years look at how different people define leadership. Identified some of the key leadership scholars as well too. So it's just in the for what it's worth department, who they were when when they were born. So it gives you a context of what era that they lived in, what it is that they did, some of the key stuff and most noted articles that they did, and really what their area of expertise was. Then leadership theories by timeline, prime sources of leadership. So as let me look at here. Yes, Norhouse, he is actually in here as well. One thing I have not done is I have not put his ninth edition in there, but this gives you an idea how frequently he updates his material. And then we get into each of the leadership theories. So, what's the basic concept? Who are the major contributors? What were the definitions? And then what is some of the strengths criticism? So, you have all of these things in here for you guys to be able to look at. So, I'll be sending that your way. So, going back and really just looking at the trait approach and stuff, what we're going to do is I'll go ahead and share the screen now with the slide presentation. And there we go. Okay. So we already sort of looked at this a little bit, but this gives you a sort of a bigger picture of all the different people that have contributed to the trade approach. And you can see some of the initial works are way back in the 1800s, early 1900s, and you still have people that are actually contributing to this. So this is really the first leadership approach that got serious consideration. Great man theory did somewhat, and this really is sort of handoff to the great man theory because what they did is okay, these were great people, but what were some of the traits that made them great leaders? And that's what the trait approach actually tries to answer. Here's some of the key contributors, and you'll see a chart similar to this in chapter two. So Stodgel is one of the main people, man, Stodgel again, and then some of the other folks. Yackel, and I had seen someone in their papers that actually referenced Yackel on some of their research and stuff. But on page 86, um, the consistent things that are identified as traits of trait leadership, if that's what you want to sort of go to, over 100 years worth of looking at all of this, he has identified that the consistent leadership traits are intelligence. So leaders are intelligent, they're self-confident, they're determined, they have integrity, and they're really sociable. And that's going to be key because you can have all of these other things, but if you are not able to relate to people, well, it's going to be hard to really lead them. Okay. Yeah, we just talked about that. All right. So, what is the application of the trait approach? Well, it really sort of helps identify some of the key leadership traits that we do see in people. And again, this is sort of going back to the great man theory and trait approach is okay, what were the traits? But from a practical approach, if you're a leader in an organization, you can begin to see some things in people. And so, how is this person going to work? What are their gifts? What are the talents? What are the things that they may be able to do? Where are they the best fit in an organization? And really, every organization, has really had to wrestle with this question. Do we recruit from within and develop people, or do we do, where we go out and basically go to a headhunter organization? In some instances, both of them are the right answers, but it depends on what the organ where the organization is at. So, but anyway, the trade approach can actually either help you identify which people to grow within and invest in, and which traits you're looking for if you're going to bring a new person in. And I have seen that in organizations I've been a part of, is like, hey, we need a leader that needs to be X, Y, Z. And there's nobody on the horizon in our organization. So these are the things that we need to go out. And when we're working with a hunter organization or we're doing interviews, these are the things we're going to be really looking at. So the definition, basically a set of traits or behaviors that can systematically explain leadership success across various situations. This is from Ledlow and Coppola. Reasons for developing the theory, so pretty much already talked about the great man. And the antecedents, this is going to be important. And these are some of the things that they talked about in chapter one, is the theories build on each other. So the antecedent obviously is the great man theory. The key people that really were foundational to the great man theory were Carlyle and then Spencer. Again, both of them in the 1800s. And really, it just kicked off research in leadership. Okay. So Stodgel was one of the first ones to take some of these, look at what Carlyle and Spencer had written, and began compiling a list of things. Here are just some of the key concepts. Let's see. Again, the traits theory contends that certain, trait skills can predict whether a person will attain positions of leadership. And what I've done is I've sort of cited where and who is saying these types of things. You can see Norhaus is in here on occasion. The Norhaus references are from, if I remember right, they are from edition 6, if I remember when I put this together. So, but you can find these in the ninth edition of Norhaus, which you have. So, looking at the skills approach, okay, here are some of the key contributors, not as many. And we're going to find out there's a reason why, okay? And you're going to see that it really is not over a large period of time. I mean, we're only talking, what, about 60 years, something like that. Here again are some of the key contributors, Katz being one of them, Mumford, Zaccaro, Harding, and then Norhaus actually takes some of these things, especially from Mumford and Zaccaro, and really puts the components of the skill model and how they evolve with career experiences, the individual attributes, and also the competencies that they possess, and what it is that we're trying to be able to do. Obviously, problem solving from a leadership perspective is essential, and performance of individuals in the organization. But then they also acknowledge that environmental influences to each of the attributes, the competency, even the problems and the performance of individuals and organizations, they're going to sort of be the monkey wrench in things. This is the relationship that Norhaus on page 139 to put together between different skills and how they sort of develop people, sort of a process here. So he goes into quite a bit of detail on this. So be familiar with this. How does it work? Well, the bottom line is it doesn't. Okay. It does suggest importance of certain skill, but one of the things that they found is you can identify certain skills, but that doesn't necessarily predict that a person is going to be a good leader. But what you can do is, at least as people are going through the career ladder at different levels, you can say, well, these are skills and things that we want certain people to have. But you have to keep in mind when we're looking at the pros and the cons of this, they're going to come out and say, this just is not used very often from a practical perspective. but here are some of the things how it can work. Okay. Um, okay. Definition. And this is by Wilkes Leadership Taxonomy. It's a leader centered perspective. This theory emphasizes skills and abilities that can be learned and developed. Okay. But the thing is, it's a leader centric type of theory. Um, Basically, the reason why they did the skills approach is they want to shift from personal characteristics, which we saw in the previous theory, the traits. And so they're just trying to get away from like, okay, well, if certain people have just innate, traits and stuff, is that really fair? So maybe there's skills that we need to focus on, and anybody can be a leader. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Okay. So again, when it gets to the application side of things, what ends up happening is Norhaus basically concludes not widely used in applications in leadership circle. There have been a lot of academic programs that have been out there that have, been part of leadership seminars and stuff to be able to teach, hey, here's some of the skills that are desirable. And maybe you can sort of encourage people to do better in those things. But as you're going to be learning later on with other leadership theories, it certainly is more. Leadership is more than possessing a set of skills. Strengths and criticisms. Okay, stresses the strength, importance of leaders developing skills. That's always a good thing. It's appealing because leadership is available to all. At least that's what it's saying. Expands views and components of leadership, so it goes beyond traits and then expounds the skill. Um, Breadth of skills appear to be expand beyond leadership itself. So that's a criticism. So um, very weak predictive value. Just because you have the skills doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a good leader. Um, and they are sort of polite about this, may not be suitable or applicable for all contexts of leadership. I'm going to say probably for most contexts of leadership. Skills approach is really going to be useful for people that uh, you can just see that, you know, they have the traits of leadership and then they improve their leadership because of certain skills that they've developed. But that's just looking at the vacuum of these two leadership theories. Okay. So as you guys submitted papers, one of the things that I was doing last week is, okay, what's the fairest way to be able to go ahead and grade your papers? And if you remember in the syllabus, the focus is three areas: language skills, content and format, and APA style. So you can see I've weighted these areas not 33% across the board, and there's a reason for this. I put the greatest amount of weight in content and format because that is the bones of everything. You need to identify what argument that you're going to approach, how you're going to support that argument, how are you going to do it in a logical way, how are you going to do it in sufficient length to be able to prove your point. But then, based upon the sources and references that you use, how insightful is it? Is some of your thoughts in there? And are you using the sources properly? Are they current? Are they relevant? Do the citations support your arguments? And then, even though paragraph structure is something that APA doesn't really go into as far as, hey, here are the rules, there are some general rules that actually do lend themselves to actually strong papers. Okay. And typically, uh, you're going to have 3 to 6 sentences in a paragraph. And typically, you're going to have 15 to 25 words in an average sentence. But, if it's always, 20 words every sentence, that's just going to get boring. Sometimes a 3 or 4 word sentence to just make a point is going to be good. Sometimes you may want to use a 40-word sentence. Back in the day, 1800s, 1700s, they'd have three, four, 5 pages that were one sentence, and it was a cacophony of different types of punctuation. It just is amazing. But to really have something that's easy to digest and is a good way to encapsulate ideas and build from idea to idea, this that's what the suggested thing is. So here is how I suggest. So first sentence is in a paragraph is going to be used to sort of introduce the question and what you plan to do to sort of address it. Then you're going to have 3 sentences of support. You may have a fifth sentence that provides a little bit of your own personal insight, observation, or even looking at it from a concept or a principle perspective. And then the sixth sentence is usually going to tie everything together and sort of set the stage for the next paragraph, if that's applicable. Obviously, that's going to be more in a larger paper type of thing where you're going to have multiple paragraphs. Okay. So that's the important aspect of things. Uh, and so you got language skills, that's 30%. Um, Forget the points each. I just realized I needed to update. I was experimenting with a couple of different things and I did not update that. But, the basics, spelling, grammar, use of tense, synonyms, basically, you know, don't use the same exact word throughout a paper. Okay. Use synonyms to be able to sort of break things up a little bit. And you guys are master's level students. So use some sort of vocabulary that actually is really, I guess, lends itself to that. Mastery of the language, how you phrase things, how you tie ideas together. Everybody has their own way of being able to do that, but just do it in a way that really just lends itself to a good solid paper and how you're tying the ideas and phrasing them together. Now, the area that is the least, and this is just for me personally, you have other professors that I've been in classes where they may not know the topic really well. And so the only thing they can gravitate on in grading you is language skills and APA. And it's just easy to just kill people with APA. Here's my approach is this content and format. Boy, again, like I said, those are the bones. That's everything that just needs to be done to be able to get an effective paper. Okay. Doing it in a way where it's grammatically sound and things are put together is important. But then the APA is okay, here's the formatting, here are the details. Part of the challenge is this is if you can come up with a great argument, and man, it's just fantastic. And you use great language, you use uh, good vocabulary. You're not using the same words, you're using tense in the proper way. You've mastered the language and stuff, and you've really proven your argument and stuff. Well, you may be talking to people that may not have a full appreciation of what it is that you're talking about. And then they see sloppiness with the APA. Then that gets them to start wondering, okay, well, if they didn't pay attention to detail with the APA, with the citations, the punctuations, how they've referenced, how they format the page, can I trust them in all of the other stuff? So really nailing the APA stuff down is a thing of credibility, especially at a master's level. Okay. So now here's the deal. I mean, if you max out points and content and format and then language, you got an 80. Okay. So really what that means is you're at like the low end of the B type of thing. So, I mean, that's passable. All right. But to get the credibility card going and stuff, the street cred, so to speak, from an academic perspective, going to stretch you on some of these things. And again, I'm not going to be an APA Nazi. Okay. But just wanted to explain a little bit how I'm going to be looking at things. So a lot of the papers I've read are very good, and I'm making some suggestions. So I'll put some of those suggestions. And so the point value, there are between the three areas, there are 20, I guess, subcategories that we're going to be looking at. So you do the math, 20 times 5 is 100. So you get 5 points across the board for every one of the areas, the 20 areas. Okay, that's 100 for the paper. Okay. At the B level, okay, half a point off, 4.5 times 20. That's going to be, right at about the 90, level type of thing. So this is how things are going to be, looked at. Okay. So if you have any questions on the assignments, on the reading material, some of the stuff that I mentioned, maybe I really, blew a gasket when I talked about the grading things and like, where is this guy coming from and why is he going to a level all this detail? Well, those are just all the things that are really important for writing a paper. But if I was unclear on something or I didn't say something quite right, again, reach out to me. And if you have any other questions, feel free to just send me an email. So anyway, really looking forward to your papers coming up. I'll be grading the papers that you sent this as of yesterday. Um, so I know it was a really compressed week trying to get all of those things in. So I'm going to grade somewhat liberally, just taking some of those things into account. But the papers that are going to be coming up and stuff will, firmly be, putting the grading metric and stuff that we just talked about into play. So again, have any questions, send an email, my phone information if you want to text or give me a call. Uh, Feel free to be able to do that as well. This week, I'm going to be on the road starting tomorrow morning. I'm going to be in Tucson doing some work at the Air Force Base there, but I will be back on Friday. But I'm still available in the evenings to be able to, entertain any questions that you have. So looking forward to your papers. And again, have any questions, feel free to give me a call. Well, looking forward to it. And so that is this week's installment.